There's no police outside. Where?
I don't know.
I don't feel
Maybe
that.
I don't know how to think it up there.
You'll say, where's the police at? Say, oh, out front. I got
Good evening, members of the Marin City Council, citizens and guests. I now call the 2019 organizational meeting to order. For the purposes of clearing in any newly elected officials, being that we have none, I now turn the meeting over to Mayor Hutchinson.
Thank you, ma'am. First of all, I want to wish everybody a happy New Year's and hope this is a prosperous year for everybody. We just move forward to make Hampton a better place to live. Position vacancies. Consideration and action on appointing a representative to the Henry County Planning and Zoning Advisory Board. I will take any nominations at this time.
I would like to nominate Chris Moore.
Well, I think those are just nominations.
Nominations,
opposed
just
to a
nominations.
motion.
Do I have any other nominations? Go ahead.
I'd like to make a nomination for Dexter Cladd.
Any other nominations? Okay, we have two people that have been nominated, Mr. Chris Moore. All in favor of Mr. Chris Moore, raise your hand. All opposed? You voting?
Oh.
Okay. 4 to 2. Mr. Moore will be our representative to the Planning and Zoning Advisory Board for Henry County. Second part is consider and discuss on the recruitment process for a standby judge or associate judge. I'll turn this over to my city attorney at this time.
No problem, Mayor. So let me just give you a little background. This year, I was contacted by Chief Austin because our chief judge, who serves the city in great fashion and has been with the city for a long time, missed his first court date ever. And so we had to scramble to find a backup judge to cover the one session that he missed. And so it became obvious that we may need to just have a judge on standby for any future incidences that may arise, if they arise. And so our code does allow this board to appoint an associate. The gentleman that was used by the court at one time was Matthew McCord, who currently serves as the president of the Council of Municipal Court Judges. He also is the judge for the city of Stockbridge. And it is someone, according to Chief Austin, that Judge Jerrigan, would support as well. So we're submitting to you Matthew McCord as our associate, who would only serve over our court if our chief judge is unavailable.
Okay. Any discussion among the council?
So, I wanted to know,
What was the process in choosing Mr. McCord? Was there a process in place in choosing him? Not really, other than, looking to, first, someone who had experience and did not require training or, any startup, right? So, the qualifications to serve as a judge is just 5 years of practice. Well, for someone to jump in at the last minute, that wasn't going to be sufficient. So that was one thing, someone that had the experience. Number two, someone in the surrounding area. So we did not know how long our judge would be out, based on why he was out. And number three, someone who was available, because of when times we have other courts meet at similar times that we do. And so I just kind of called around to some surrounding cities to see who was available to kind of fill in for us real quick, not necessarily thinking long-term, but given the feedback from the police department, from the prosecutor, and also from our judge, and also from other persons in the Council of Municipal Court Judges, it seems to us that are familiar with the court process that he would be a good fit for long-term, should he be needed. So it's only on an on-call basis.
Go ahead.
I just want to say, I know, of course, judges are whatever. And, so I wanted to see like a process that we would go through in regards, because our judge is getting older, and he may decide he's going to retire or anything. Do we have anything in, as far as a process, that in order to get some of those judges, whether their records, applications, anything, because everybody might know Judge McCord, I'm just not familiar with it.
Understood. So we certainly, the law does not require you to do a formal process. Appointing a judge it's just that. If you would like there to be, I think his resume went out to them. It might be in your packet. If you would like a formal process for either opening it up for the chief, or are you saying opening it up for the associate, or both? A formal process for...
Oh, no, I'm talking about setting it up so that if we need to,
a full-time?
Full-time.
Mhm.
Right.
So certainly, we could put something together, and it would just be something that, we make up, obviously. And I don't mean we as in me and the chief, I'm talking about the city. But there's no requirement, there's no law, state or local, that says you have to put out a RFQ, or, it wouldn't be a RFP, but it'd be a RFQ or solicitation for judges. We can do one, right, and see what we get.
We're not gonna know anything.
Right.
And it's my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, if something were to happen to Judge Jernigan, or he were to retire, whoever the subject judge would not automatically roll into the permanent judge. That would still have to be somebody appointed by you. So this process would only be to have somebody, a known person we would call in case Judge Jernigan was unavailable. And like I said, since 1974, that was the first time, so.
So that is, Mr. McCord is the recommendation from the council and the chief?
From all of the court folks.
Any more questions? I need a motion to approve the recommendation of the city attorney for Judge McCord as a standby judge.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve the Associate Judge Matthew McCord for the, in case of absence of the regular judge.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Pass 6-0. Thank you, ma'am. Now, can I see my city attorney and my city prosecutor, Ms. Clark, is she here?
I don't see Ms. Clark.
She's gonna be running a little late.
Oh, can I see my city attorney
You
then?
may. Yeah, okay.
Raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Larry Barnes Wiggins,
Having been duly appointed as the city attorney for the city of Hampton, do solemnly swear that I will be, to the best of my ability, preserve. No, 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 I don't want you to repeat.
Okay.
Okay, no, that was too fast, you're right. Preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States and the laws of the state of Georgia and the public interest, and that I will exercise my best judgment, and I will consider each matter before me from the viewpoint of the best interest of the city of Hampton as a whole, and to fully, faithfully discharge the duties of the office of which I am about to enter. So help me God.
I do.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
I'll take care.
Okay?
I'll let you know when Ms. Clark arrives.
Okay, thank you. Just let me know when she does arrive, we'll swear her. Okay, appointment of committees by Mayor Steve Hutchinson. Consideration, I take nomination at this time for Mayor Pro Tem.
I'd like to nominate, Harold Mitchell.
Do I have any more nominations from this committee, from the council? We'll start with Ms. Tarpley. All in favor, Ms. Tarpley? You can vote for yourself, you can. Okay, three. All opposed? And I'll break that tie. I'm gonna go with the new Mayor Pro Tem this year. All in favor, Mr. Mitchell? All opposed? And I'll break the tie and I'll vote for Mr. Mitchell, be Mayor Pro Tem. That's kind of funny. Moving on, consideration and action on the nomination of the Administrative Finance Committee. The chairman for this committee will be Mr. Mitchell. Co-chairman will be Mr. Brown. Public Safety Committee, chairman will be Ms. Ann Tarpley and Mr. Mitchell, co-chair. Community Service and Recreational, chairman will be Ms. Ann Tarpley and Mr. Willie Turner, co-chair. Environment and Sanitation Committee, the chair will be Mr. Willie Turner and Mr. Elton Brown. Electric, Water and Sewer Streets Committee and Sidewalk, this will be Councilman Byrd as chairman, Mr. Willie Turner as co-chair. Public Building and Property will be Henry Byrd and Mr. Elton Brown the chair. Youth and Education and Youth Committee Council, chair will be Ms. Stephanie Bodie and Ms. Ann Tarpley. And Community Development will be Mr. Mitchell and Ms. Bodie, co-chair. I know that some of the council have expressed interest in maybe swapping or looking at other chair or other departments, so if y'all will work that out among yourself and come see me, we'll look at it. Okay, now we're gonna have the public hearing on our proposed FY 2019 budget, ordinance number 472, second reading. Is there anybody from the public who would like to speak on it? At this time, I will close the public hearing. I need a motion to approve or disapprove ordinance number 472.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we approve ordinance 472.
Okay, I have a motion, a second by Mr. Turner. Any discussion among the council?
So, Mr. Mayor, I do have discussion. I came before the council before we, voted when we were talking about this in regards to, changing the budget line item for the DDA instead of $130,000 to give them $230,000. As you know, we have been visiting other cities, the economic development plans, hearing from different, people that are experienced in doing things and how to get things done. And the DDA is the tool that they always utilize in order to get, projects in their communities done. I think that we should invest in our DDA so that they can invest in our city. So I'm asking council to change the budget line item for the DDA from 130 to 230.
Ms. City Attorney, do we need to,
Sounds like she's making a motion
Motion,
to
that's right.
amend the FY19 budget to include the additional $100,000 for the DDA.
so we would need to vote on that first,
Yes.
on the
Well,
amendment?
you gotta get a second on her new motion.
Do I have a second on her new motion? Okay, got a second by Mr. Turner. Any more discussion? All in
Oh, wait,
favor?
I'm sorry, she's making a motion to
Motion.
amend the original motion.
Right.
So
Right.
this is the second Mr. Turner's making to amend the original motion.
Right.
So that's what you're putting before your board. Is it okay to amend the original motion? And then you'll vote, if it passes, then you will be voting on the amended motion.
All in favor of amending the motion
To add the
to
100,000.
add $100,000 to the DDA? All opposed? It failed, 4-2.
So the original motion is back on the
Right.
table for,
103.
yeah.
Okay, any more discussion on the FY 2019 budget? All in favor for the budget?
No, it was already on.
It was on, Yep. All in favor of the 2019 budget? All opposed? Passes 4-2.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, who made the, I know Mr. Brown seconded.
Mr. Turner had, Ann made the original motion, Mr. Turner came along and motioned her for the first time.
Okay.
Okay?
And on the motion to amend, it was the same, Ms. Tarpley made it, Mr. Turner
Okay.
seconded, but it failed.
It failed.
But the original motion didn't pass.
Now we have the personnel hearing for Mr. Charles L. Tony.
And if we could just take a second, because we're gonna set up a little differently for this.
Okay?
We're gonna get you a table, Mr. King, and that podium will get moved.
Chief, can you take
Yes, ma'am.
chairs?
Yeah, we'll just pull it from the front.
Derek, do you need some help?
Huh? Pull through it unless you don't want to.
And if your court reporter needs to maneuver, we can have her come closer if you like.
Okay, can we just use the microphone? Sure. And as long as everyone uses the microphone, that's okay.
Put it on the table, chief, the microphone.
I need a mic?
Yeah, we're gonna let Mike.
Okay. That's good.
Mayor, if you just allow me an opportunity to introduce get all set up.
Okay. Ms. Wiggins, I'll turn it over to you this
Are we
time.
ready? Or is Chief getting stuff? Well, I can go ahead. As you know, this is the appeal hearing of, Mr. Charles L. Coney. This appeal hearing is done pursuant to the employment contract that was issued by this board to Mr. Coney upon his, hiring as the city manager, earlier in 2018. The appeal, the request for an appeal was timely done following this board's, action to terminate the services of Mr. Coney. And so, we are having this hearing pursuant to the timely request. I will put on the record that, there was some scheduling conflicts amongst, Mr. King, who represents Mr. Coney, and the city, and myself, with holding this hearing much sooner. And so based on some email conversations and phone conversations between myself and Mr. King, today's, hearing was a suitable time for both sides. And so we're having this hearing as an opportunity for, Mr. King and Mr. Coney to appeal to this board to overturn, the decision to terminate his services. And so this is an opportunity for the board to hear, them, out fully, however they present, their case. And once that is closed, once their case in chief is closed, this board will be given an opportunity to deliberate. We'll go into executive session upon a motion and second and vote by this board to discuss. And, we'll come back out and, a decision, if one is determined, will be, announced on the record here in this public meeting. So if anybody has any questions about the process, both sides, then, you can't hear me because I'm not speaking in the microphone.
If anyone has any questions about this process, then now is the time, before we get started.
Okay, I guess before we start, I'm going to object to the process. Basically, and at the beginning of the hearing, we object to the hearing because of the lack of specific notice. We still don't know the reason for the termination of Mr. Coney. Lack of adequate pre-termination here, lack of disinterested and unbiased decision maker, lack of subpoena power. We asked for subpoenas, and we were told that we could not have any subpoenas. Basically, we object to the process because it seems to me that it violates due process, because it seems to me the city has the burden of proof, but it seems like the burden of proof today is being basically placed on Mr. Coney. We also object basically because in an employment hearing, you're supposed to have an opportunity. Each party must be afforded a fair opportunity to present its case. A fair hearing includes the right to confront and cross-examine witnesses, and I'll cite the case of Neal v. Augusta, Richmond County Personnel Board 304, Georgia Appeal 115, and that is a 2010 case. And also we object because the position we take, and we will establish that the alleged vote taken to terminate Mr. Coney's, employment contract not only violated the contract, but it also violated the Open Meetings Act in the sense that it was not an agenda item, nor was it added as an agenda item before any votes were taken. So with that, we object to the process, and we ask for a continuing objection to the process because it's not due process. It's not basically an arena where Mr. Coney, I guess as we sit here, he had no specific notice of the reason for his termination, and it's kind of hard to fight something when you don't know what you're beating by. Thank you.
I'm not a lawyer, so I'll let my city attorney reply.
Well, this is not an opportunity for me to go back and forth with
Okay.
Mr. King, and so if he wants to continue in light of his objection with the, appeal hearing, where he presents whatever information he wants to present to appeal to this board, now is the time to do so.
Well, we're gonna call Mr. Coney as our first witness. Is there any way Mr. Coney can sit over there?
For what purpose, Mr. King?
So that I can ask him questions?
Well, this is not a trial.
Well,
That's
what-
what I explained to you, sir.
I-
So where he sits, I think is, no
Just because you say it's not a trial, doesn't mean that you are doing what's necessary to follow the law. I understand you saying it's not a trial, but you understand as an attorney, I still gotta make my record. And all I'm doing is asking my client questions. I mean,
you can do that.
okay. Oh, Mr. Coney, I guess what we'll do is we'll just, do it right here. Could you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
So do.
Okay. Could you please state your name for the record?
For the record, I'm Charles L. Coney.
Okay. Mr. Coney, were you at any point, the city manager for the city of Hampton, Georgia?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to give you, and I have copies for you, and I'll just put them here unless you want me to bring them to you.
Oh, no, sir, you can
Okay.
sit him on the edge, I'll get it.
I have, I'm gonna put, okay, just get that. I'm gonna give you what has previously been marked as, plaintiff, employees exhibit 1. Could you tell us, for the record, what that is?
This is the employment agreement between myself and the city of Hampton.
When you say employment agreement, do you mean employment contract?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, could you, for the record, tell us when that contract was executed?
It's dated, entered into on the 27th day of March, 2018,
Okay.
with signatures, I would assume around the same time, there's no date on the signature.
Okay. Did you execute that contract?
Yes, it has my signature.
Okay. And when, you executed that contract, did you rely on what was placed in that contract?
Yes.
Okay. Now, since the date that you executed that contract, did anything happen where you, that contract was amended?
No amendments to this contract. We still operate with the original.
Okay. Now, during the time this contract, was in place, was there ever a time, say around in September of 2018, where the council attempted to terminate the contract?
Yes, I believe around that time, there were some discussions amongst the council members from the mayor.
Okay, and they were attempting to terminate the contract based on the plain wording of the contract, is that true?
That is my understanding.
Okay, and what happened, can you tell us?
To my knowledge, the mayor called council members seeking to get the 4 votes per the contract so that he could, enter into necessary action on it.
Okay, so he could terminate the contract.
Right.
Okay, now, at the time that happened, did the city of Hampton give you any, like, 45, 48-hour notice or any type notice?
I received no notice.
Okay, and when they talked about getting 4 council people, was the mayor included in one of the 4 council people who were necessary to terminate your contract?
To my knowledge, not. The contract, removes him from having his vote.
Okay, so he could not vote.
He would not be able to vote.
Okay.
It is his job to solicit.
Okay, let me ask you this. At the time,
Shall I read it, or are you okay?
go ahead and read it.
It is section number 3.1, mayor initiated in accordance with City Code 2-120C1. The mayor may suspend with or without pay or terminate the appointee, provided, however, that before taking any such action, the mayor must obtain the written consent of at least 4 council members and shall inform the council and the appointee at least 48 hours prior to action. There is a 3.2, council initiated. In accordance with City Code 2-120C2, the city council may suspend with or without pay or terminate the appointee at any regularly or specifically scheduled meeting by a majority vote of the entire city council, i.e. 4 council members.
Okay, and we've already said that the mayor is not a council member.
Not specified here.
Okay. And let me ask you, that contract, Mr. Coney, do you know who drafted that contract?
The city attorney,
Okay. And did the city attorney draft that contract for the city of Hampton, Georgia?
she acted in capacity representing the city of
Okay.
Hampton.
And do you know whether or not under Georgia law that contract construed most strongly against the drafter?
That's the way I understand contract law in Georgia.
Okay, I'm gonna give you what has been marked as Employees Exhibit 2, and I wanna ask you whether or not you know what that document is.
I do, shall I read?
What is it?
This is a letter from me dated November the 14th to the mayor and council requesting for an appeal. The purpose of this letter is to request pursuant to section 3.3 of my employment contract with the city of Hampton, Georgia, and it was attached, an appeal of the decision to terminate said employment contract or my employment. This request for an appeal is being filed within the 72 hours required by the employment contract.
Okay, well, since, I guess this is an unusual proceeding for an employment hearing, we're going to move into evidence, Employees Exhibit 1 and 2, and I guess it's, ain't nobody on the other side, ain't no objection, but we're gonna move those into evidence. And now, Mr. Coney, I want to give you what has been previously marked as Employees Exhibit 3. And I want you to ask you whether or not you know what that is.
Yes, this is the Code of Ordinances for the city of Hampton with section 2-120 relative to the city manager.
Okay, now, at the time you executed your contract, is that the, ordinance that was in effect?
I would have to compare, this printout was dated 1/2/2019, so, I would have to compare the details, but I would assume, I can say that at the time that I signed the contract, the Code of Ordinances matched, and as evidenced by the multiple references to the Code of Ordinances, so that there would be clarity.
Okay, now, you said something earlier about removal, said that, you had to obtain the written consent of at least 4 members and shall form the council and the city manager at least 48 hours prior to acting. Is that what was in your contract?
That is in the contract, and I see it here in section 2-120, C, paragraph 1.
Okay, so do you know?
Shall I read it again? Because it is there, 4 council members, 48 hours.
Okay, and is this the ordinance that was in effect at the time your contract was drafted?
Yes.
Okay. Now let me ask you, this ordinance, and I asked you this earlier, if this ordinance was in effect at the time of your contract, and do you know whether or not if your contract were amended, whether or not both parties would have to agree to the amendment?
Yes, the contract specifies that. There is a section here that says that both parties must agree to any modifications. Well, I'll jump to section 10.4, entire agreement. This agreement constitutes the entire agreement between the parties with respect to the subject matter hereof, and supersedes any prior agreement between the parties, written or oral, relating to the same subject matter. No modifications, amendments, or supplements to this agreement shall be effective for any purpose unless in writing signed by an officer of the city and appointed.
Okay, now can you go to section 9? Section 9 of the contract.
Yes.
And can you read the last section, the last sentence in section 9 of the contract?
9.3, 9.2, 9.1.
9.1.
9.1. The city shall amend, modify, change the terms of this agreement by executing a new agreement with the appointee.
Okay, now, since the day this contract was signed, did you execute a new agreement with the city?
I have not.
Okay. And again, this was drafted by the city?
That is correct.
Okay. I'm gonna give you what has been previously marked as plaintiff exhibit 4, and I wanna ask you whether or not you recognize what that is.
This appears to be the full charter of
Okay.
the city of Hampton, as filed in the House,
Okay.
Georgia House of Representatives.
Now, do you know whether or not that charter would have been the, charter that would have been in effect, during the time you were, city manager?
I would have to compare notes, however, the Georgia legislature only meets during the early part of the year to make any and receive any changes to charters. So, I'm of the agreement without reading the, let's see, how many pages we got here? 35 pages. That this was the charter, at the time that I signed the contract. I did review the charter as well as the code of ordinances as I signed the contract, and so everything was in sync at that point in time.
Okay. Now, I want to give you, at this time, we're moving to evidence, employees exhibit, 3 and 4, and I guess since, nobody else is here on the other side, I guess it goes in evidence without objection. I want to give you what has previously been marked as employees exhibit 5. I want to ask you whether or not, you know what this document is, and you can take the time and read it.
This is the agenda, which is certified by the city clerk from the November the 13th meeting. High level agenda, I see the original one that came out, and I see a modified one to have some addition.
Okay, now, on November the 13th, 2018, would you have been the city manager for the, city of Hampton, Georgia?
That would be correct.
Okay. Did you have, anything to do with drafting that agenda?
Yes, my responsibility as the city manager was to consolidate, coordinate, and facilitate agenda to the mayor for final approval to make sure that it was acceptable for his administration of the meeting. That properly handled, was documented, and as a result, the agenda was published, I want to say that Friday morning.
Okay. Now, let me ask you, maybe say on or about November 11, 2018, did you know anything about whether or not you would be terminated as city manager for the city of Hampton, Georgia?
No, no
Okay.
official communication.
So basically, you would not have been provided the 48 hours notice required in the contract?
That is correct.
Okay. And the city knew that the 48-hour notice was required because they had tried to do it once before, and it did not go by. Is that correct?
I would say they should have known, as I knew, by the signing of the contract, which brought me to Hampton to provide city management services. Likewise, I agreed in concert that an attempt was made in September, and they were advised that necessary actions must be in place in order for that to occur.
Okay. And it's your testimony, if I'm incorrect, just make sure you correct me, that from September 2018 until November 13, 2018, nothing happened where a contract was amended where you signed another contract?
That is definitely correct. We only have the original contract.
Okay. Now, on that agenda, I'm gonna ask you this question first. Was there anything on the original agenda that dealt with an agenda item about terminating the services of the, city manager?
I'm looking at it, there's nothing there. It isn't.
Now, I think you tell me, do you know whether or not before the board adopted that contract, whether or not they voted to amend, strike, before the board adopted that agenda, do you know whether or not they voted to amend that agenda to add some items on?
I recall that it was the agenda was amended, and with the addition of items, and the certified, agenda that has been provided shows those additions on there.
Okay. Now, when they amended the agenda, did they add on the, agenda an agenda item to terminate the, employment of the city manager?
No such item is there, as an addition, and to my recollection, nothing was offered in voice communication item.
Okay. Now, at some point, I guess on the 13th, the board voted and they went into executive session. Did they, you know whether or not they went into executive session?
Yes, I was a part of that executive session.
Okay.
So on the 13th, there was a motion to go into executive session, and,
Let me ask you, do you know whether or not in the executive session, they took a public vote to amend the agenda?
I don't believe I'm privileged to answer what occurred in executive session.
That's a trick,
Might need to
that's
get
a
the
trick
minutes.
question, they can't vote in executive session. But, after they came out of executive session, did they vote to amend the agenda to add as an agenda item the termination of the city manager?
That did not occur.
Okay. Now, are you sure that didn't occur?
We can get the minutes if necessary, because that would be Hampton's official record. record that will be filed on behalf of the government,
Okay, all right, so.
higher than all parties involved in the work.
Okay, so that did not occur, okay. Now, I want to give you what has previously been marked as, employees exhibit 6. Okay. I'm about to lose the document. I want to give you what, has previously been marked as employees exhibit 6. And I'm going to ask you some questions about that document. What does that document appear to be?
This is the agenda relative to today's meeting.
Hold on.
Special call meeting.
Court reporter, have all the exhibits been tendered into evidence?
Not exhibit 5,
Excuse me?
not exhibit 5 and 6.
Not exhibit 5 and 6. At this time, I move to tender into evidence, employees exhibits 5 and 6, and since, nobody else is here, I guess they're basically admitted, without objection. But I'm gonna ask you some questions, Mr. Coney, with regard to, this, exhibit 6. What does it purport to be?
This will be the special call meeting agenda for January the 3rd, 2019 at 6 p.m.
Okay, and when it gets to the, I guess, the item number 5, it has personnel hearing for Charles L. Coney. Do you see that?
Yes, I concur.
Okay. Now, the exhibit, and that is exhibit what right there?
This is exhibit 5.
Okay, exhibit 5, does it have anything on it saying, as an agenda item, termination of city manager employment contract of Charles Coney?
It does not.
Well, Mr. Coney, you know, gullible country boy like he can't read that well. Do you see, Charles Coney's name on that document anywhere? If you do, point it out to me and to the board.
The first instance would be a public comment ad by Attorney Maurice Luther King Jr. on behalf of City Manager Charles L. Coney.
Oh, so your name is on there for that, isn't it?
Yes, sir. I did see it.
Okay. Anything else?
No, sir. Not on the originally shared, nor the certified copy.
Okay. All right, so we know your name appears, and let me ask you, since that appears as an agenda item, do you know whether or not, I was able to get up and make comments on your behalf?
Yes, you did.
But it was on the agenda.
It was added to the agenda, so yes, it is printed
But
on the agenda as well.
was anything added to the termination of Charles Coney's employment contract?
No.
Okay. I want to give you what has been previously marked as, Claims Exhibit 7. No, I'm sorry, Employees Exhibit 7. And ask you whether or not you've seen that document before.
Yes, this is a special call meeting agenda for December the 11th, 2018. The City of Hampton, Mayor, and City Council shall hold a special call meeting on Tuesday, December the 11th, 2018, at 3 p.m. at Hampton City Hall, located at 17 East Main Street South, in the council chambers, to discuss the following items. 1, appeal hearing for Charles L. Combs. 2, executive session. 3, council's decision on appeal. 4, adjournment.
Okay. I'm gonna give you what, and basically, when it talks there, it says an appeal hearing.
That is correct.
Okay.
An appeal hearing.
Okay. Now I wanna give you what has been previously marked as Employees Exhibit 8 and ask you whether or not you've seen that document before.
Yes, I have seen it. These are ordinances from the City of Hampton, different sections relative to the duties and the powers.
Okay. At this time, I move into evidence, Employees Exhibit 7 and 8, and I guess they're tendered, without objection.
All of them will be tendered without objection, okay?
Okay, thank you. Mr. Carney, we generally talk about when your contract, well, let me ask you this question. According to the plain wording of the contract, do you know when the contract was supposed to end?
Per the contract, employee exhibit number 1, the initial term of this agreement, this is coming from section 2.1, the initial term of this agreement shall be from date of execution up through and including December the 31st, 2018. This contract shall automatically renew every January the 1st for an indefinite period as provided for in City Code 2-120P1.
Okay, now, let me ask you this. Did your contract end on December 31st, 2018?
According to the agreement, the initial term will be from signature date to December the 31st with the automatic renewal.
Okay, well, were you here on December the 31st, 2018?
Was I in Hampton or here on
Were you in Hampton as city manager on December 31st, 2018?
That remains to be discussed as a part of our appeal. And until the decision has been accepted and the appeal process gone through, I would say that I am still the city manager.
Okay, so your position would be you're still the city manager. Okay. But apparently, well, let me ask you this. Have they, when's the last day you worked as city manager?
The last day that I was physically here would be that November the 13th, but I don't want to say that I have not worked as city manager.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. Have you got, from November the 13th, since we sit here today, have you been paid for any duties as city manager?
I have not been financially compensated.
Okay, all right. Let me ask you, at the time that, basically they terminated, or they purported, let's say they alleged you purported to terminate your contract on November 13, 2018, were there any outstanding monies that the city owed you?
Yes, there are some reimbursements that need to be dealt with, and, final accounting of receipts.
Okay.
Yeah.
Prior to November 13, 2018, did the city, or, members of the mayor or members of the council take any actions that you thought that basically, breached the contract?
Yes, there were some items that I brought it to their attention.
Can you tell us what those items were and what you brought to their attention?
The original one was relative to providing, benefits, and as well as, the process, the duties of the city manager versus the duties of the mayor. Day-to-day administration was really in the hands of the city manager per the charter. The actions were occurring outside of that scope.
Okay, well, did the mayor or anybody on the city council do anything, basically to, hamper your day-to-day activities with the city?
Yes, there were directives given to staff members, bypassing the city manager. There.
Okay, well, let me ask you, as you understand the charter, do you know whether or not the mayor or any, council, person had the authority to basically give, directives to employees?
None did.
Okay, but it did happen?
It happened.
Okay.
Several cases that documented.
Okay, and do you know whether or not those activities would have violated, say, the charter, and some of those would have violated the code?
Some of them, violated not only the charter, the code, but federal laws as well.
Okay, what violated the federal law?
There was an employee dismissal that occurred, without involvement without proper investigation of the city manager.
Okay, who dismissed the employee?
Mayor's confession.
Okay, now, as you understand the charter, and the ordinance, does the mayor have the authority to, dismiss an employee?
He did not.
Okay. Now, do you know whether or not the ordinance and charter specifically states that the mayor and council shall not interfere with the day-to-day activities of the city?
I'll paraphrase, but it won't come from my voice, it'll come from the Code of Ordinances. I'm reading at 2-120D, powers and duties of the city manager. The city manager shall be the chief administrative and budgeting officer of the city and shall be responsible to the city council for proper administration of all affairs of the city. There's some other language, I believe, on the mayoral. I don't have the mayor.
Well, let me,
Mayor's duties.
well, I think it's in there, it's one of the exhibits.
Yeah, it's documentation that says interference with the day-to-day is not to be decided.
Okay, well, let me ask you, while you were city manager, did the mayor interfere with the day-to-day activities of employees with the city?
He did in instances, and other council members did also.
Okay, well, let me ask you, were there any time prior to the time, that they purported to allegedly, terminate your contract, did you make those complaints to the mayor and city council?
I did. It was happened in a one-on-one conversation. I will also say that one of the reasons that I was sought to come to Hampton is because I have the unique position of being both elected and administrative. So, as an elected official, I am very cognizant of the depth of which an elected official should not go to direct the day-to-day, especially in light of having a professionally to handle those things. So it was brought to attention in conversation, in learning each other, and then it grew to include other council members, Mayor Pro Tem, and there are written emails, as well as there were meetings to talk about, okay, what things are going well, what things are not going so well, how do we move forward from here, what do we take from this circumstance, how do we help it? I would also say that there were several times when, as we worked through a solution, Mayor Hutchinson took the initiative without inclusion of city managers to handle things, and I had to come back to him and say, Mayor, here is a different way to handle that situation. And I will say for the record here, I can name circumstances where he was very supportive and said, hey, that's good, thank you. We just gotta get used to having a person here every day. So I don't wanna paint the picture that throughout my entire tenure here, that has been the relationship. I would say that there has been an open dialogue between the mayor and the city manager, which I firmly support, to work through how is the best way to handle this in accordance with the law, and more importantly, the people involved.
Okay, and whatever you thought, I guess whatever you thought the violation of the code of ordinance and the charter basically, you conveyed to them. So let me ask you, would they have known those complaints prior to the vote that they took on November 13, 2018?
Yes, most definitely at that point.
Okay.
And those notices would have been done in writing and in the formal method, in that I felt necessary, based upon the activities that were occurring, to involve my legal presence and to change the narrative of what was being spoken about my performance, as well as the actions occurring here in Hampton. So not only were there dialogue, there was third-party legal acknowledgement that said these things are not in support of your charter, and therefore they are deemed against your charter, and we put them in a position of being illegal. I was also privileged to have you come speak directly to the council to make them aware physically, and if anyone wanted to have dialogue with you, they could have said, whoa, you're saying this is illegal?
Okay, and all of that would have occurred prior to the time the purported alleged vote was taken to terminate your contract on November 13th, I guess, 2018?
That is very much correct.
How did that meeting go when they allegedly voted to terminate your contract? Could you tell us what happened for the record?
My opinion was very standard meeting. We had.
I'm talking about after the meeting, after they allegedly took a vote.
When we came out of executive session, there was a motion made by Councilmember Mitchell and seconded by, I believe, Councilmember Bodie. And then immediately a vote was taken. There was no acknowledgement, no communication, nor, I never would have known that was what was going to transpire.
Okay. Was there any written, that they gave you to say that we gonna terminate you tonight, Mr. Coney, for A, B, and C reasons? Was there anything like that?
That was spoken that night, after the executive session. Nothing written prior to received to me.
Okay. And you didn't know they were going to, take that vote?
No knowledge, no one.
Okay. And after they took the vote, how did they handle you with regard to, leaving the city of Hampton?
Interesting enough, I was asked to come into the conference room. We had a period of delay. The attorney was trying to effect what had transpired. I was trying to get a handle, I was trying to reach you. We waited, mayor finally came in, and then,
Mr. Conley, did they basically treat you like a nigga?
I don't like that word used, period. That is not what happened. And
I will say-
Okay, well, let him answer.
I would say from my perspective, and I share your comment, Mayor Hutchinson, because I have lived my life very much aware of being African American, but trying to go high whenever people go low. Okay? So, I will not answer that question. What I will say is, I was treated most unprofessional that night. I was demanded under threat of being arrested to turn in keys and anything I had for the city. And I was quite shocked because I was sitting there thinking, wait a minute, I have shown no behavior that would suggest I am attempting to do harm to this city. If a decision has been made, let's professionally go through the decision and let's handle it. I thank the attorney for her attempt to manage it. It was most unprofessional. I thought that in the manner that a former employee had been dismissed and walked off these premises, that we had learned better, that we need to be extremely sensitive to how to handle people.
Let me ask you, what was the color of that employee who was walked off the premises?
He was African American as well.
So do you know whether or not they reserved that disrespectful treatment for black folks?
I can answer the question this way, that in my tenure, that never occurred. We dismissed other employees. That was a professional manner in which it was handled. That was a collaborative effort, and it was administered by the city manager. There was even a time where we went into extreme dialogue to have an investigation done to make sure that there was true due process. There were times when I was specifically asked, you need to terminate this person, you need to terminate this person. And I said, well, I don't do that. You know, I make sure it is my job to protect this government from the legal ramifications that occur from emotional and erratic decisions. Do I feel that there is a racial overtone tied to this matter? Yes, I feel that.
Well, let me ask you, prior to the time you came here, how many other black city managers that the city of Hampton had, do you know?
You know, I said I wasn't gonna object, but I am at this time because this is his appeal hearing, Mr. King, and I'm not sure what any of this has to do with requesting this board to overturn the decision to terminate the services of Mr. Coney. And obviously you are allowed an opportunity to make your case, and I'm not finished, to make your case. But if it can be relevant to the reason why we're here, that would be the best use of our time.
Okay, let me ask you this, what is your, position here today? I mean, are you a hearing officer, or are you just, are you just representing the city?
So I'm not under oath like your client is, but I will tell you that I am here always as a representative of this board in this city to ensure that things are done legally and in order. And if I needed to make a recommendation to the client, it's that now we're out of order. And so let's stay on the relevant topic of, you terminated me. I would assume your position is take my client back as the city manager, and here's why. I don't know if they've heard that
and the road you're going down doesn't seem to address that. And so we can disagree.
And we disagree because.
I'm gonna finish if you don't mind,
Okay,
because I didn't
go
interrupt
ahead.
you
Well,
this entire time.
Well, you didn't interrupt me
So-
because the proceeding is not what an employment hearing is.
Well, I think you're confused as to what this employment hearing is. This is not a ordinance or charter requirement. This is simply a sentence in this gentleman's contract that allowed him to appeal a decision to terminate. And so if you're basing this on something in an employee handbook, which does not apply to this gentleman, then you're mistaken. And so it is very vague and loose and broad as to what this is with regard to an appeal. But if you use it in the core terms of the word, the plain sense of the word, you're appealing to the board to overturn their decision. That's it.
I understand, but in most cases like this, when there is a hearing, and a hearing is a hearing, it's one side presents evidence and then the other side rebuts that evidence. But in most times when you have these situations, basically you have what are called reasons for determination. Now, we don't, I mean, we're at a disadvantage, and like you said, it's broad and all that, but we don't have any reasons for determination, so we're almost shooting in the blind here because we don't have that information. So I'm gonna finish up, so let me just make my record, and if we have to go a step further, we want the record so that we can do that, okay?
I'm gonna ask my city attorney, I think we've had plenty of time. I think we need to move to an executive session. Do you see a problem with that?
That would be require a motion and a second by your board.
I need a motion from board member to go into executive session.
May I make a motion to go into the executive session?
All in favor? Pass forward. All opposed? Passes 4-2. We're in executive session at 19:10 hours.
Okay, court reporter, let me object to that because not only do you not have a process, but basically you have cut off the process that basically we were supposed to do, and we object to that.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We can do it, we'll come back. Thank you.
Did I get all my?
I got 8 coming for you. All the ones you admitted to this if you're gonna restart, then don't give me those.
That's only 1 through 8.
No, no.